I want to start with something that doesn't look like a problem. At least, not at first. You're at home. Everything is quiet, predictable, controlled. No pressure. No unexpected conversations. No need to perform. And honestly, it feels good. You tell yourself, I just like being alone. I'm more comfortable here. I don't need all that noise. And maybe that's true. But then something else starts to happen. You begin to hesitate. Going outside feels heavier than it should. A simple plan. Feels like effort. Meeting people. Feels like something you have to prepare for. And staying home becomes the default. Not because you chose it consciously, but because it's easier. And that's where things start to shift. Because this isn't just about preference, it's about how your brain experiences the outside world. For some people, being around others is energizing. For you, it can feel draining. Not always, but often enough. That your brain remembers it. It remembers the moments where something felt off, where a conversation felt forced, where you didn't know what to say, where you felt slightly out of place. Small moments, but repeated enough. They become a pattern, and your brain does what it always does. It adapts. It starts looking for ways to reduce that discomfort. And one of the simplest ways is avoidance. Not dramatic avoidance, subtle. I'll go next time. I'm just tired today. I don't feel like it. And each time you choose to stay home, something important happens. You feel relief, immediate. The tension disappears. The pressure fades. And your brain notices that. It learns something. Staying home equals feeling better. And that lesson is powerful. Because your brain doesn't just care about what's right. It cares about what feels safe. So over time, that association strengthens. Home becomes more than a place. It becomes a state. A space where your system can relax. Where you don't have to monitor yourself. Where nothing unexpected happens. And the outside world becomes the opposite. Unpredictable. Demanding. Unclear. Not necessarily dangerous, but uncertain. And uncertainty is what your brain is trying to avoid, so it keeps choosing the same pattern. Stay in, feel better, again and again. But there's another layer to this, one that most people don't notice. It's not just about avoiding discomfort, it's about control. At home, you control everything. The environment, the noise, the interactions. Nothing surprises you. And that creates a sense of stability, but outside, you don't have that control. People act in unpredictable ways. Conversations don't follow scripts. Situations change. And your brain has to process all of that in real time, which takes energy. A lot of it. And if your mind is already active, already analyzing, already aware, that energy cost feels even higher. So again, staying home feels like the better option, not because you can't go out, but because your brain is optimizing for comfort. There's also something else happening. The less you go out, the less familiar it feels. And the less familiar something feels, the more effort it takes. So even small things start to feel bigger. A quick trip outside becomes a task. A simple meetup becomes something you think about all day. Not because it's difficult, but because it's no longer routine. And your brain prefers what it knows, what it can predict. So it pulls you back to what's familiar, to what feels easy, to what feels safe. And slowly, without realizing it, your world becomes smaller, not physically, but experientially. Fewer interactions, fewer situations, fewer unknowns. And at first, that feels like peace. But over time, it can start to feel like something else. Disconnection, because even though you're comfortable, you're also limited, not by ability, but by pattern. And that's the part that matters. Because this isn't about being introverted. It's not about needing alone time. It's about when comfort becomes avoidance, when safety starts replacing experience, and when your world is shaped more by what you avoid than what you choose. And once you see that, something shifts. You start asking a different question. Not, do I feel like going out? But, am I avoiding something? Because those are not the same thing. And that awareness is where change begins. And once that question appears, everything starts to look a little different, because now you're not just following the feeling, you're observing it. You notice how quickly your mind gives you a reason to stay. I'm tired. It's not important. I'll go another time. And on the surface, those reasons make sense, but underneath them, there's something else, a subtle resistance, not loud, not dramatic, just enough to keep you where you are. And the moment you see that, you gain something small, but powerful. Choice. Because before that, it didn't feel like a choice, it felt like preference. Now, you can see the difference between wanting to stay and defaulting to it. And that changes how you act, not instantly, but gradually. Because the goal isn't to force yourself outside. That doesn't work. Your brain resists force. The goal is something quieter, to create small moments where you do something slightly different. Not everything, just a little. A short walk, a quick errand, a brief interaction, something that doesn't overwhelm you, but also doesn't keep you inside the same loop. And when you do that, something interesting happens. The discomfort appears, that familiar tension, that hesitation, that voice that says, go back. But if you stay, even for a moment, it passes. Not completely, but enough. Enough for your brain to notice something new, that nothing bad happened, that the discomfort didn't grow forever, that you can exist outside your usual space without losing control. And that's the key, because your brain doesn't change from logic. It changes from experience, from moments where expectation doesn't match reality, where you thought something would feel overwhelming. And it didn't. Or it did, but only for a short time. And then it faded. Those moments start to rewrite the pattern, slowly, because now your brain is learning something different. Outside is not always a problem, and I don't always have to avoid it. And the more evidence it collects, the less intense that initial resistance becomes. You still feel it, but it doesn't control you the same way. And over time, something shifts again. Going out doesn't feel as heavy, not because everything changed, but because your relationship with it did. It's no longer something you have to prepare for all day. It becomes something you can step into and step out of without it defining your entire state. And maybe that's the most important part. You don't lose your need for calm. You don't stop valuing your space. You don't become someone completely different. You just expand your range. So home is still a place you return to, but not the only place you can exist. And that difference, even though it's small, changes everything.